University of Birmingham, and works very closely to support our community, and it's really brilliant that she's able to come and give a talk here today. So over to you, Nicola, and
well, thank you very much for the introduction, and it's a great pleasure to be here. And I'm going to make the case for oak, as if I needed to do that to this audience. But I think it's very important that we think about why is it such an important species. There are around 600 different oak species globally, and it's got a very, very wide distribution. So it's a very important tree globally. And in the spirit of this meeting, the time for trees, it dates back to around about 56 million years ago, the beginning of the Eocene. Although looking at the literature, there's some sort of discussion about that, but certainly fossil records show it to go back at least 56 million years. It is a robust tree and quite well adapted, but it also suffers from lots of problems. And when we look at the value of oak, you know, these figures just show how important it is. And in the UK, in GB, we've got about 172 million oaks, we estimate. Particularly veteran trees are important. We know it's a very high biodiversity species. It can support more than 2,300 other organisms. And of course, it's iconic. The oak leaf is the iconic symbol of national conservation organizations. And I would argue that, you know, it's probably the leaf that most members of the public could identify. So it is very important iconically and economically, socially and environmentally. And it is under threat. So when we look at the threats to our treescape, and the graph there shows that it's a very steep increase in pests and diseases that have arrived, and some of them can simply fly across the channel. So we are seeing an increase in the pressure on our trees generally. It's driven by globalization, movement of plants, people, other products, and also, of course, climate change. So whilst our oak trees are generally robust and well adapted, in our UK Plant Health Risk Register, we've identified 90 different pests that could arrive here in the UK and could be a problem to our oaks. And we've already got oak processionary moth established in the southwest. We've got acute oak decline causing mortality. And of course, Xylella fastidiosa we do not have in the UK. It's the one that we are fighting very hard to keep out, but it would certainly affect oak. It's got a host range of more than 600 species. So when we started thinking about the problems with our oak and this idea that we wanted some action around it, a group of researchers got together to come up with this oak conceptual framework for the pest, the host, the environment, and all the other factors that affect oak health. And it's a complexity, as you can see. And so our work around trying to work out what do we need to do to protect the oak is very much based on trying to identify these individual threats, challenges, but also to see how they fit together in this sort of complex framework. And this graphic was published as part of our Action Oak Knowledge Review back in 2019. And it really forms the basis of the work that we're investing in. And when you look in a bit more detail about what does that mean in reality for our oak trees, and you can see again how, for example, a soil acidity can drive, you know, whether a tree is healthy or it's impacted by acute oak decline, AOD. And again, we've got this complex kind of nutrient cycling, water cycling, interactions in the leaf canopy with the environment that again means that it's a complex that we really need to be able to identify individual challenges and targets. And particularly in relation to acute oak decline, it's a complex between bacteria, an insect vector, and lots of environmental factors. So trying to get to the bottom of AOD, and ultimately what can we do to support oak trees to manage it is one of our major targets. We also are looking at the health of our oaks, and this shows the results from the Oak Crown Condition Survey at 84 different sites all over the country. So you've got some trees that are in decline, some that are improving, and some that are stable. And the indicator here is how green is the crown, essentially. So it's the absorbance of the crown. But what we've seen is that you can probably see in that data there is a gap. So this was done very intensely between 1989 and about 2009, and then it stopped. There wasn't enough funding. We didn't have the people to actually do this intensive oak crown survey. But through the actions of the Partnership of Action Oak, we resumed the crown monitoring back in 2019, and we're now gathering the data again. We're also looking at the distribution of oaks and their health nationally with our partners in Action Oak. So this is a really important baseline for the state of our oaks and what we're going to do to support them. So that all led us to saying, okay, we've got to do something here. So we came up with this idea of a partnership called Action Oak. And when we first started back in 2016, we had these various kind of mission statements. We want to protect our native oaks, work collaboratively, share findings with practitioners, people actually managing woodlands and forests with oak trees, and also raise public awareness and get everyone thinking about this. And of course, advocating for the role of oak in the wider landscape. So those were our sort of mission statements and our vision. And it's about making sure that oak has a future in the landscape for people, for the environment, and wildlife as well. So these are more than 30 organisations that are part of the Action Oak Partnership. As these things always take a little bit of time to get going, people have to start working together, building trust. But it's fantastic to see so many organisations who are interested in trees and the environment and people and science, of course, working together. So just a bit of a timeline as to sort of where we came from and where we are right now. So in 2016, Action Oak was a kind of twinkle in the eye of our minister at the time, Lord Gardner. When we met the King, then Prince Charles at Highgrove. He summoned various people to come and listen to his concerns. So government, tree people, horticulture people, arb people, landscapers, everyone that sort of uses trees, appreciates trees, to really think about the challenges, not just to oak, obviously what's been happening with elm and ash over the years. And we came away thinking we've really got to do something to make sure we're on the front foot, that we really understand what is at risk and what we're going to do to protect it. And then the following year, we launched the idea in the House of Lords with the support of Lord Gardner, our minister at the time. And really, we've gone from strength to strength there. Through Defra, we have supported a project officer, and we've got Sarah here today. She's at the back. And then we've done lots of kind of knowledge reviews, research reviews, and public engagement work, as you can see there. We have an annual partner event. We were actually here at BIFoR 2 weeks ago for our annual partner event, and we heard from some of the early career scientists who are now working on oak, and it's so very exciting to hear that work which is up and running. And we continue to invest in resources and people. We recently appointed a new director who's going to be working with us to sort of go out and seek more funding and more partnerships. And then, you know, various events. We're always active at Chelsea Flower Show. That's a really good opportunity to talk to stakeholders and to raise our profile. You know, it's been a sort of short journey so far, but we're really beginning to make headway with Action Oak. And we did a knowledge review and identified the research challenges so that we could make sure that researchers like yourselves understood where we felt the knowledge gaps were, where the opportunities were. It's absolutely critical that we secure long-term commitment to this. The canopy survey stopped because there was no funding, and you simply cannot have that when you're working on trees. You've got to have continuity. You've got to, have that long-term investment, like the FACE project, where there is a commitment to have a long experiment so that you can take all of that data, and then it's only then that you begin to understand what's the real value of that. Understanding oak demography and its dynamics, really, really important. Making sure that we understand what we've got. We're doing some fantastic genomics work as well. It always sort of struck me when ash dieback happened that A, we didn't know what the pathogen was. B, we had no idea really the genetic basis of one of our most iconic native trees. And coming up with an ash genomic map really began the kind of to help us look at the future of the ash. If we've got a genomic map, we can begin to understand, why are some trees more susceptible than others? What are the genetic markers for future resilience? And it's the same with oak, and you heard yesterday from Estrella about this as well. We're looking at, functioning of tree systems. Again, trees tend not to grow in isolation. So, how is the whole systems approach working? And we've heard at this conference around, various other threats from invasives, fire, climate change, etc., and how that can impact our trees. And then, of course, looking at the individual threats and what the management options are for those trees. So our current research portfolio, it's about £1.5 million a year, and we're now funding 23 individual projects with about 18 PhDs and fellowships. So essentially, we've gone from nothing to, quite a substantial research program. And it's great to see now that community of scientists and early career researchers coming together to really begin to deliver the knowledge. So, lots of focus on the science, but also the new talent, making sure that we're sharing resources and knowledge. We know where the field sites are. We're all working on the same field sites. And we're also developing the idea of a living laboratory at the heart of England forest, which is down in Warwickshire. And when we look at the research community, if you think back to that conceptual framework, the host, the environment, and the pest, we've now got projects in all of those areas with our different partners, looking at the microbiomes that you're going to hear about shortly, looking at the various aspects of pollution and drought and pathogens. And we've got individual researchers and research organizations and lots of partnerships working together. And of course, BIFoR is at the heart of much of this work. So that, that's fantastic to see, as well as our other partners. So just a couple of example projects. We've got a project called Backstop, which is supported through the BBSRC Bacterial Plant Diseases Programme, co-financed by Defra, and that's looking at saving threatened oak, protecting them for future generations. So this work is led by Forest Research. So essentially studying things like acute oak decline in particular. We're also looking at understanding of AOD in relation to powdery mildews, and you heard yesterday about the Membra project that Australia is leading and the BIFoR team there. Some other projects you're going to hear in a moment from James about future oak, and then we have this monitoring project looking at the 84 monitoring sites across GB. And then looking at storm events as well. We haven't really heard about storm events in this conference, but we've got a PhD student at Newcastle, particularly in relation to Storm Arwen, that recent storm and the impact that's having on tree canopy. So we publish everything that we do. We've got a number of publications that are available on the Action Oak website. We have an annual report as well as evidence summaries and the kind of setting out the research agenda. So do have a look at those. And then final thoughts. I hope you sort of appreciate and now understand more about why we're particularly concerned about oak health. We need more vital research, and it has to be a long-term commitment. And that's why our partnership has to, you know, be here for the long run as well. And I think it's quite a unique partnership, bringing together government, researchers, charitable trusts, as well as the private sector and practitioners. And, you know, finally, we've heard throughout this conference about the challenges where woodlands are managed, unmanaged. What does that mean? I'm particularly concerned about unmanaged woodlands, because this is where pests and diseases can establish without anyone noticing. And unfortunately, that's been the case over the last few decades. And we're discovering just now pests and diseases that have been here 20 years and nobody noticed. So, you know, this is where we've all got to play our part. So do look at the Action Oak website. We're also on Twitter. You know, if you want to get involved, you know, talk to myself or Sarah, and we'll be delighted to hear from you. And I think that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicola. That was fantastic, and really good to see all the initiatives that are going on. So thank you.